Hi, this is Nahid. So in our October Best Practices Forum, we're going to be talking about internal communication, specifically meetings. So meetings can be so stressful, and there's even been a book written about it called Death by Meeting by Patrick Lencioni, and I love this book. We're actually going to be talking about it in the forum. But there's a bigger question here, and that is, how do you create a system, a communication system internally, so that each person has the information they need to do their job? And oftentimes that means knowing what somebody else is doing that's related to them. So how do you do that? How do you make sure that everybody knows what they need to know so that they can collaborate, but at the same time not waste everybody's time in meetings so they can't get any work done? So I think that's an interesting question. I think we all struggle with it to a certain extent, and that's what we're going to be discussing. So I hope to see you there. So today we actually had our meeting on meetings, and we had a couple people that were willing to stay after and talk a little bit about their insights, and here they are. So thank you so much for being willing to talk a little bit about our Best Practices Forum today. Miriam, what did you get out of it?
Well, today's conversation was really interesting for me, partly because there's so many great perspectives and you get just different angles of thought on and people's experiences. And so hearing how they navigate different meeting types and what works for them and what doesn't was really valuable. But I think something more specific that came out of it was really just recognizing that meetings are a tool and not getting sort of caught up in sort of letting them take on a life of their own, but really serving a purpose and flexing with that, so they can be short or medium or have different functions, and seeing them as a way to support what you're trying to accomplish.
You know, and I know in the conversation we were having, you had mentioned when we were talking about that you had actually observed a couple of examples where when organizations were actually using a meeting to serve a purpose, they were getting a different outcome than when they were just letting it have that life of its own they were talking about.
Exactly. And as you know, as people are able to sort of focus in on what's important to them, sometimes those meetings only need to be 10 minutes long.
Oh yeah, yeah. And one person in our meeting did say that the meeting's either 10 minutes or it's 90 minutes when they allow that to happen.
Yeah, and so keeping them as a tool.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us and talking a little bit about our forum today. So for people who didn't get to come, right, and kind of are wondering, what did we talk about? What did we get out of it? What are some things that you might share?
Okay, so I loved the meeting today. And it was a meeting and it was on meeting, so it's kind of cool. And I love the way the meeting started, because everybody kind of shared their meeting nightmares, and everybody had one, and it didn't take long for it to come to the forefront. And it really stood out to me just how important meetings are in our lives, even though they frustrate us.
Right.
And the thing that really I loved hearing about, and I hadn't thought about it before, was that whole concept of meeting stew. The idea of throwing everything, like the whole kitchen sink, into the meeting, everything from the strategic plans to the tactical plans, you know, what were we going to do about this, that, and the next thing. And the idea of separating it into separate meetings, I think, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
so does. I really, you know, the next time I plan a meeting, I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind, that I don't have to get it all done in one meeting. I can separate it out and make it more productive for the group.
I love that. And one thing I want to just mention is, you know, we talked about Death by Meeting by Patrick Lencioni in the meeting. I actually read some of the executive summary from the book, which didn't take long, but one of the things that came up is that, you know, you don't necessarily need to follow his formula to a T. You can take the pieces that really work for you. And we had a lot of people give really interesting examples of how they used the principles in the book, but in different ways based on their different environments.
Yeah, because every organization is going to be different, and they're going to have different needs. So having a daily huddle, for example, for every business is not necessarily going to work. Or meeting monthly maybe isn't the way. Maybe it is just like a weekly meeting. But that I did like the things that you brought out in that book, and I thought it had some excellent points.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.